Hello and welcome to another episode of The Average EV. The ID.4 has kind of quietly been swept under the rug, but now that the stop sale has been lifted really for a few weeks, I think it's time to kind of bring it back up into the public's attention and let them know it's a really good car to get. And I thought I would also compare that with the Equinox, just in case people who were maybe thinking about the ID.4 might be cross-shopping with the Equinox. Let's get into it. Okay, everybody, so if you haven't heard, there was a recall for the Volkswagen ID.4. There was a stop sale, so they hadn't been selling them at all for, I'm pretty sure it was almost 6 or 7 months, which is an extremely long time to not be selling a car. There were 2 recalls. One was with the handles. That was kind of the main recall, and then there was a software issue with the 2023s and before that needed to be recalled. Our car is currently at the dealer for the recall. There was some kind of issue with the software and we haven't heard back from them, so we're going to follow up. They gave us a loaner, which is really great. I know not every dealer does that, but we have a loaner at this point in time, and we'll hope to get that car back. And I'm going to tell you all about our experience and at least to see if there's any major differences for that. But this whole thing got me to thinking, people haven't really been buying the ID.4. People don't really recommend the ID.4. I find myself recommending the ID.4 a lot because it's a really great car. I'm sitting in an Equinox, by the way, right now. But I've been driving my wife's ID.4 and it's a great car. It drives super well. It's enjoyable to drive. It's fun to drive. It charges well. And people just kind of always forget about it because it's been around since 2021, So I don't know. So I made this video. Hopefully it'll be helpful to you all if you're interested in getting the ID.4. So another piece of news that's kind of interesting is for this year, for the tax credit, which some people might say it's, could be removed. I'm not so sure that will happen personally because of the states that benefit most from the IRA and these kind of tax credits are states that would people would assume would vote to remove the credit, and I don't know if they would. So we'll see how that plays out. Regardless, the ID.4 was removed from that list. So if you want to buy an ID.4 right now, you are not going to get the $7,500 tax credit. But never fear, I looked at the Volkswagen website, and they have some of their specials that have been posted. My wife is actually driving with our rental ID.4. There it goes. Anyways, they posted some of their specials. So right now they have a special for the small battery, which, if you need like a city commuter, it's nice. It's got a lot of space, but it's not a car I would recommend to anyone. But they do have, the 2024 Pro with the big battery, the 82 kilowatt hour battery. And it appears for all trims, so Pro S and all-wheel drive variants, you can get one of 2 deals. So one is, I believe, 0% financing for 72 months and $5,000 cash, or you can get $10,500 off of a lease or a finance if you don't want to do the 0% financing. I did kind of run the numbers, and for some scenarios, it might actually be better to do the 0% financing with the $5,000. But if you don't want to do that and you want to get other financing, or maybe you won't qualify for the 0% financing, or you want to lease, the $10,500 might be good. So that actually is really appealing because now not only are you getting the $7,500 tax credit, you're getting an additional $3,000. And I did look around at some dealers in my area, and I'm seeing some even additional, deductions from, I can't think of the right word, but a decrease in price for some ID.4s. I've seen some go like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, so you could get an extra on top of that. So that could make the ID.4 enticing if you're into it. People are nervous about the ID.4. People complain about the software. We personally never had any issues with the software, but they did a recall. That recall will be done prior to you buying the car. But that would just be for 23s, because 2024s, as far as I'm aware, the software is fine. So maybe I won't talk about that. But for the 2024s, they updated the software to 4.0, and it's great. I've only ever heard positive things about it. No one's really told me negative. If you have had any negative things, put it down below. If you bought a 2024, or if you've had positive, put those down below for people to look at. But they improved the software, they made it better, they added battery preconditioning, they improved the route planning. It's good software now, so that's not really a complaint. A lot of people complain about the charging. I'm going to be honest, and I will talk a little bit about Model Y, but this is not a Model Y video. The Model Y charges 10 to 80 in the same time that the ID.4 does. Now 10 to 50, it is much faster than the ID.4, not gonna lie there. But if you're 10 to 80, and most people like to do those longer charging sessions so that they have plenty of buffer and they feel comfortable, you're looking at the same 28 to 30 minute charging time. So just want to, and I did check recently with a Brandon Flash video where he did a 10 to 80 and it was about 30 minutes. It may have been a touch longer actually. So, the charging is actually fine. The space is fine. The ride quality is fine. With the 2024, they improved the motor, so it's even zippier. They doubled the horsepower, so it's way zippier just for the rear wheel drive. So it's a nice car. If you want it and you go out and you drive it and you like it, get it. You're not gonna regret it. I promise you. We have loved ours. No car comes without fault. No car comes without issues. I'm not saying that might not occur, but in general, we've had a good experience, and I know a lot of other people have had a good experience as well. So there's that. I'm going to turn to this table here, kind of comparing some of the different trims and stuff like that. It's really hard to tell you what's the best price-wise because, dealers can, reduce whatever they want from the price, or they can mark it up. They can run whatever specials they want. But I'm just showing you what I've seen in general that has been advertised. So when we're just looking at the ID.4s, I have the ID.4 Pro and the Pro S. This is the rear-wheel drive. I'm not talking about any all-wheel drive. If you want to do that, you can kind of add that and go on their website and look and see how much more it would cost. But for the ID.4 Pro, the price is $46,300 with destination. There's no tax credit available, but they do have that that discount of $10,500, and I believe that's through March that VW is incentivizing. And that would be a total cost of $35,800, and that does not include taxes and fees. So taxes and fees would be added on to that. Then for the Pro S, starts at $51,420 with destination, so quite a bit more, but you get a lot more. No tax credit, same with the discount, and that's $40,920. Now, if we look at the base Equinox EV, so that's $34,995 with destination. You get the tax credit, and I'm pretty much seeing dealer discounts around $1,500. I have seen some be marked down a little bit more, but it wasn't every, especially with the 2025s, they tended to not be marked down yet. But maybe you could get extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 depending on the dealer. But I saw $1,500. And that gets you out the door with the base Equinox. It's very bare bones for $25,995. So that is much cheaper than you're going to get the ID.4 Pro, but you're going to get a lot more car. I'll get into that later. And then here at the end of the table, you can see we've got the 2025, the LT. I didn't do RS. I just said LT because they're a little bit cheaper. Actually, in one of the trims, they're actually technically a little bit more expensive. But anyways, the LT without Super Cruise, so not fully equipped. I did add the sunroof because the Pro S has the sunroof, just so they're comparable. And this does not have Super Cruise. The price is $47,895. Gets the tax credit, that dealer discount, and you get it for $38,895, and that's a little bit cheaper than the Pro S is with that $10,500 off. And then lastly, I did the Equinox, fully equipped, everything, sunroof, Super Cruise. $51,250, has a credit discount, and that's $42,250, which is the most expensive car on here, but it is very nice. And when you compare that to the Pro S trim, they're pretty similar in what you get, but obviously Super Cruise is nice on highways, but it doesn't do lane centering everywhere, whereas for ID.4, regardless of trim, Pro S, even the base ID.4, you get that travel assist, which does do lane centering, which is really nice. Now, to move down, a lot of people complain that Equinox doesn't have, or any GM product for that matter, doesn't have CarPlay. ID.4 has CarPlay. So if that's for you, that's awesome. I'm gonna be really honest, I don't miss CarPlay when I'm in the Equinox and when I'm in the ID.4. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I wish I had CarPlay, but I know a lot of people really do love it. You can't have native Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, which is a negative in the Equinox for sure, but I haven't missed it. That's just my personal opinion. Everybody's going to be different, right? But that's worth noting. For the charge rate, the ID.4, they actually had it on their website, 175 to 200. I've recorded the top speed of 192 on the ID.4, so that's what I can say for that. I usually would see, though, around 185 kilowatts. And then for the Equinox, they advertise 150. I've seen 152. The max I've actually seen is 160, but that was on the dispenser, not in the car. So very interesting, but the ID.4 has higher charging rate, peak charging rate. And then I have a couple interesting things. So I have EPA range and then my range and all these little statistics below. So first off, for the EPA range, for the ID.4s, it's 291 now, which is up from the 2023. That's because of the new motor and efficiencies. I've never been able to range test that, so I don't know how it stacks up in comparison to the 2023, but that's what the EPA numbers are. And it has a 28-minute charging time based on my observations of charging and other people's observations of charging. And that basically means in 10 to 80%, you can add 203.7 miles based on EPA, and you get 7.2 miles per minute added when you charge from 10 to 80%. So very interesting. When you look at the Equinox, they advertise 319, which gives you a 10 to 80, and a charge time of, they don't advertise this. This is what I found is 40 minutes. I've gotten 36. I've also gotten 51, but I tend to see it be 40 as a good number. So that's what I chose. The Tesla superchargers tend to go a little bit faster, I've observed, but I also haven't observed Tesla superchargers in extreme heat, which is when I was getting those higher charge times. But let's say 40 for now. 10 to 80% range added, you add 223 miles, which is only 20 more, which isn't that much when you really think about it. And for 10 to 80% miles per minute, you're adding 5.5 miles per minute. So you're adding almost 2 miles less per minute than in the ID.4. So when you actually look at the numbers, the ID.4 and the Equinox are very similar when it comes to charging and range, even though the ID.4 actually has less range. When you look at my numbers, I recorded, now again, this is the 2023 ID.4, so it should be slightly better, but I just left in my numbers. I got 262 for the ID.4 for my range test, and these were very similar conditions, the Equinox and ID.4, and I got 268 on my Equinox. I've seen people get 300-ish for the Equinox as well, but I'm just gonna go based on my numbers and my loop. That's what I have to work with. Please note that my range test does have a hill, but I do a loop, so it should cancel out-ish. I have a feeling there's some heat losses with the Equinox, which causes it to be a little bit more inefficient than with the ID.4, which manages the heat much, much better. 268 for the Equinox is what I got. When you run the numbers there with the ID.4, you get 183.4 miles added in 10 to 80, and then the Equinox is 187.6 miles. So you see what I'm saying? They're basically the same in real life scenario, at least based on my numbers. And then the 10 to 80 miles per minute added, you get 6.55 for the ID.4, and you get 4.6. So again, almost 2 miles per minute more in the ID.4 added. And that's just because the charging is a little bit faster, more consistent. And I will say, just as far as charging is concerned, my ID.4, and as long as the battery is warm, which I've never had an issue with, especially in the summer road trips, I get almost the exact same performance for charging every single time. And I love the reliability. With the Equinox, I can't say the same thing. However, like I've gone on the record saying the channel a lot, it doesn't really matter. That's not consistent most of the time because I don't usually go super low or don't need to, because it does have a decent amount of range. Okay, so just moving on, some more comparisons. ID.4's rear wheel drive, which I like. Equinox's front wheel drive, which has been fine for me, but and some people like front wheel drive, some people like rear wheel drive, so that's really up to you. Or you can upgrade to all wheel drive. Please note, when you get the all wheel drive ID.4, that's going to be way more pep than when you get the all wheel drive Equinox. It's much better. Here, looking at the horsepower and torque numbers, it's close to double the torque in the ID.4, and you feel it, and it's just fast, and especially for an SUV. There are faster ones. Listen, there are faster ones, but you don't need it. Like no one needs that. And 282 horsepower and 402 with the ID.4 and the weight, and it's in the rear wheel. It's nice. I really like it. With the Equinox at 220, 243 feels a little underpowered to me. And a lot of people who leave comments, some people who want a little bit more power do tend to go with the all-wheel drive because it does add a little bit of a bump, at least at initial acceleration. And then maybe if you need to accelerate a lot on the highway to maneuver around people or whatever it might be. So to not make this a super long video, when you go down here and you're looking at all of the different options that can come with the car, and I didn't include everything, but I include what I think a lot of people care about: the heated seats, the lane centering, cruise control, maybe sunroof, moonroof, ventilated seats, stuff like that. There's a lot of similarities. So when you look at the Pro and the base Equinox, you know, you get lane centering with the ID.4, but you don't with the Equinox. You get adaptive cruise for both. You don't get power adjustable seats for either. You don't get sunroof, moonroof. You do get heated front seats for the ID.4, but not for the Equinox. That base Equinox is base, okay? There's not a lot on it. And then no heated back seat for either, or steering wheel, or ventilated front seats, or massaging seats. Not at all. So, you know, as far as that, you know, you don't get a lot of the niceties. But with the ID.4, we haven't really missed it, and the heating seats have been nice enough for us, and with the ride quality, you know, we've really enjoyed the car. Now, when you want to bump up to the Pro S for the ID.4 or a more equipped LT, that's when things get interesting, and you can look there. But with lane centering, Super Cruise has lane centering when you're using Super Cruise. Otherwise, you don't have it. ID.4 always has it with Travel Assist, which I've talked about before. They all get adaptive cruise. They all have power adjustable seats. They all have moonroof, sunroof. And again, I added that for the LT to make it comparable to the Pro S. The thing is that the ID.4 is fixed with a shade. The Equinox actually opens up. So if you want one that opens up, Equinox might be for you. Heated front seats, they all have that. The ID.4, from what I could tell, doesn't have heated rear seats, but the Equinox has heated rear seats. And I can confirm that because I have them in my car. Heated steering wheel you would get for all of them. Ventilated front seats for all. And then one little bit of nice thing for the ID.4, when you get the Pro S, you actually get massaging seats as well. Massaging seats are not available on the Equinox. So the last thing I want to talk about, well, one of the last things I want to talk about is the rear cargo area. You do get a lot more rear cargo area with the ID.4, both with the rear seats up and the rear seats down. The number I have here is for the rear seats down. So you get 64.2 with the ID.4, and you get 57 cubic feet with the Equinox EV. And I have also notice, or I want to note, that for the ID.4, the undercargo, you get a nice undercargo, and then you get the deep undercargo. Whereas with the Equinox, there's kind of all those plastic cutouts that put things in you can't use really well. You can kind of find some stuff maybe you have to put in it. And then it does have a pretty deep cutout as well. Maybe, I'm just trying to think, they're pretty similar actually, the Equinox to ID.4. And then the ID.4 has two cutouts on either side in the rear, whereas the Equinox has one, and it's pretty small. The ID.4 ones are sizable, if I'm going to be honest. But you can, as GM advertised, fit a bottle of milk in that. So that's how big that one is for the GM product. And then the last thing on this chart is just supercharger access. All the GM products can already access a supercharger, which is nice. The Equinox has the front left port, which is not ideal, but I haven't had that many issues with it. But you could run into issues with that. And then the ID.4 has it on the rear right, which is basically the same, so it's not ideal, and you have to back in and then block a charger. But in most places, especially for me on the East Coast and in the middle of the country, I've never run into a completely full supercharger. But yeah, so that's that. The last thing I just want to talk about, and I've done an ID.4 Equinox comparison video, but the ride quality, I do think that the ID.4 drives a lot better as far as suspension and handling and acceleration and stuff like that. The Equinox, I haven't had an opportunity to use the higher profile tire. That's a hard sentence to say. But from what I've heard from other people, it is nice. So that might be pretty comparable to the ID.4. So as far as that's concerned, maybe the rides might be closer, but I have the sportier lower profile tire with the 3LT and 21-inch tire, 20 wheel and tire. So that's that. This is what I tell everybody: go drive it. Go drive it. If you like it, get it. If you don't like it, don't get it. Fear your gut. You don't have to buy a car. But if you are shopping between these two, hopefully this will be helpful to you all. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, Model Y. People are going to say, get the Model Y, get the Model Y. If you don't care about brand allegiance or anything like that, then get the Model Y. The pricing for a starting Model Y is about the same as the ID.4 Pro. And then if you get the all-wheel drive, it's pretty compelling in comparison to all the cars I presented for you all today. You are getting a very simple car. It does have a lot of tech. It doesn't have as nice of features that you could get in either the upper level trim Equinox or the Pro S ID.4, but it's a nice car and people love them. What I might say, it really depends on your perspective. Right now, soon might be the best time to get the Model Y. They might start lowering the price because they have the newer variation coming out. In addition, well, not in addition, but for other people who might think differently, they might want the newest, next best thing. Then maybe pump the brakes, wait, check out and see what the new Model Y has, because when the Model 3 had its upgrade, it added actually a lot of nice features like the rear screen, and you got the heated ventilated seats, and you got the ambient light and stuff like that. So I suspect they're going to be adding a lot of those niceties as well to the new Model Y. So again, I'm never going to tell someone not to get a Model Y. And I've said this in a lot of comments, but I'm trying to produce content that's useful to people. And I see that there's a really flooded market with Tesla content, and that's why I stay away from Tesla content and I do non-Tesla content for me. So maybe would a Model Y be a good fit for me? It might be, but I'm just trying to provide content that's helpful to you all and get cars that people might be looking at that are on the more affordable side of things. Okay, so I didn't want to miss that. Additionally, too, there are other good SUVs in this category. If I did all of them, this video would be longer than it already is. So the Aria is really nice. Look at that. The Evolve, I believe it's called like Evolve Plus or something like that. I think that's one of the best trims you can go for in that, price-wise and content-wise. It has a lot of content in it. But you can also get a pretty cheap one. Just make sure you get the ones that have the bigger battery. You definitely don't want to get the smaller battery variant because it's cheaper, unless you don't need a bigger battery. They don't charge great, but they charge really flat and consistent, which is nice. The Mustang Mach-E is another great option out there. They're about to have a new, the 2025 model year is about to have a lot of nice changes. And I think maybe some price reductions too. So that you could be on the lookout for that as well. I'm trying to think of any others that really caught me. Obviously, the EGMP cars are awesome. Their software is not the best, if I'm going to be honest, but the charging's cool and the driving experience is great. So you could look at those as well. And I think that pretty much covers most of them. I know you all will leave down in the comments all the other cars I forgot, but leave them down below. The point is, didn't have time to cover them all. So in closing, go drive the car, see what you like. There's deals out there for you to get, depending upon the trim. ID.4 might be better for what you want if you want to get different features and stuff like that. The Equinox might be better for you. If you drive a lot with consistent charging, go ID.4. If you want to get all the features and you want to save maybe a little bit of money to get all those nice features, Equinox might be a better route for you. There you go. So thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, please remember to give a like, a subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will catch you all next time.